What if the greatest threat to our society is not malice, not evil, but stupidity? This may seem like an extreme statement, but it was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German theologian and anti-Nazi dissenter, who argued that stupidity is far more dangerous than outright evil. Why? What led him to make such a bold claim? Today, we will delve into his thought-provoking ideas, exploring his reflections on the nature of stupidity, its socio-psychological effects, and why, in his eyes, it poses a far greater danger to humanity than malice ever could. What is the hidden enemy that continues to plague modern societies, undermining reason and progress? Dietrich Bonhoeffer's understanding of stupidity reveals a concealed enemy, one that is not easily identifiable, yet it quietly manipulates the collective consciousness, perpetuating systems of injustice. Evil, in the form of malice, is often visible. It manifests in acts of cruelty, oppression, and violence. But stupidity, according to Bonhoeffer, is far subtler. It is the unquestioning acceptance of ideas without critical thinking. It is the silent acceptance of systems, ideologies, and actions that are inherently flawed. Bonhoeffer saw stupidity as a force that allowed evil to thrive without opposition. While evil can be confronted and challenged, stupidity cannot be fought with reason alone. People blinded by stupidity will defend their positions with great vigor, often unable or unwilling to recognize the consequences of their actions. The Nazi regime, in its ability to manipulate and control the masses, was a prime example of this phenomenon. Those who followed blindly lacked the critical faculties to question the atrocities being committed, and in doing so, became agents of stupidity. So, what exactly led Bonhoeffer to this profound conclusion? To understand his reasoning, we must first recognize the context in which he lived. Bonhoeffer was an outspoken critic of the Nazi regime, and his deep involvement in the church, as well as his resistance to the ideology of National Socialism, placed him in direct opposition to the pervading social and political currents of his time. He saw firsthand the way that stupidity, a lack of questioning and critical thought, enabled the rise of Hitler and the Nazi Party. Bonhoeffer recognized that stupidity was not simply ignorance or lack of education. Rather, it was a deeper societal flaw, a psychological condition where people, in their desperation or fear, abandoned reason and allowed themselves to be swept along by the prevailing tide. His assertion that stupidity was more dangerous than malice comes from the observation that stupidity is impervious to reason. Evil, on the other hand, could be confronted through moral reasoning and ethical struggle, but when stupidity takes hold, it resists every effort to challenge it. It is impervious to truth and reason, and that, to Bonhoeffer, made it the far greater danger. Why is stupidity more dangerous than evil? This is the crux of Bonhoeffer's argument. Evil, as Bonhoeffer saw it, could be exposed and opposed. It could be fought through resistance, moral clarity, and action. But stupidity, by its very nature, does not recognize evil. It is blind, unwilling to acknowledge wrongdoing, and resistant to the very idea of change. In Bonhoeffer's view, the failure to see the truth, to engage with moral and intellectual rigor, makes stupidity a far more insidious force. Consider the example of Nazi Germany once again. Hitler's rise to power was not solely due to malice, it was enabled by stupidity. Many people, willing to follow an ideology that they didn't fully understand, failed to question the destruction of the Jewish population, the occupation of neighboring countries, and the horrors of war. This collective stupidity, rooted in conformity and unquestioning loyalty, allowed evil to proliferate. It wasn't evil in the direct sense that made Nazi Germany so dangerous, it was the mass complacency, the intellectual laziness, the acceptance of falsehoods without protest that allowed evil to thrive. To understand why stupidity is so dangerous, we must first explore its nature. What is it? how does it manifest? Bonhoeffer described stupidity not as mere ignorance, but as a deep psychological and moral failing. It is the inability or refusal to engage critically with the world around us. A person who is stupid does not seek understanding or clarity. They accept things as they are, without questioning, without considering the consequences. In his writings, Bonhoeffer suggests that stupidity is a form of mental laziness. It is a condition where a person, through either self-interest, fear, or lack of intellectual rigor, chooses to remain uninformed, unwilling to challenge their preconceived notions. At its heart, stupidity is a lack of self-awareness. It is the failure to recognize one's own limitations, biases, and ignorance. In an era where information is abundant, stupidity thrives in the refusal to confront uncomfortable truths, in the willful denial of evidence, and in the comfort of staying within the bounds of one's own narrow perspective. Stupidity is not just an individual flaw, it is a societal problem. When entire communities or nations fall prey to stupidity, the results can be disastrous. Bonhoeffer saw stupidity as a collective failure of society to think critically, to engage in self-reflection, and to question authority. The rise of totalitarian regimes, the proliferation of dangerous ideologies, and the erosion of democratic values are all consequences of collective stupidity. The problem with stupidity, according to Bonhoeffer, is that it spreads. It is contagious. When a significant portion of a society is incapable or unwilling to engage with complex issues, the entire social fabric is weakened. People become more vulnerable to manipulation, and the truth becomes harder to discern. In such a society, moral clarity and intellectual integrity are overshadowed by the allure of simplistic solutions and dogma. So, how can we avoid falling into the trap of stupidity? Bonhoeffer's advice is simple, yet profound. Think critically. Question everything, including the things that seem most obvious or comfortable. Avoid the temptation to accept easy answers. Engage with people who challenge your ideas, and always seek a deeper understanding of the world around you. Stupidity thrives when people isolate themselves in intellectual echo chambers, where only like-minded ideas are reinforced and no alternative perspectives are considered. To avoid this, we must practice intellectual humility, always acknowledging that our own knowledge and understanding are limited and subject to growth. Bonhoeffer's ultimate message is that the antidote to stupidity is the active pursuit of wisdom, the constant questioning of assumptions, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. The path to wisdom requires us to resist the temptations of conformity, to seek the truth even when it is difficult, and to be willing to change our minds when presented with new evidence. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's reflections on stupidity offer us a valuable warning. When we allow ourselves to fall into intellectual complacency, when we refuse to question, challenge, and engage with the world around us, we pave the way for dangerous ideologies and injustices to thrive. Stupidity may seem like an insignificant threat compared to outright evil, but as Bonhoeffer so powerfully argued, it is often the more insidious and destructive force. By recognizing the dangers of stupidity and committing ourselves to lifelong learning and critical thought, we can work to prevent history from repeating itself.